You know that feeling of walking through an airport and it's just buzzing with life again? Yeah, it's been pretty great. After a few, let's say, quiet years, air travel has absolutely come roaring back. We're all booking flights, planning trips, and the skies are packed. But behind this awesome return to normal, there's a huge crisis brewing, one that could literally keep planes stuck on the ground. Okay, let's get into it.
And this is where things get weird. It's this total paradox, right? Airlines are seeing this massive surge in demand. I mean, they want every single plane they own up in the air, making money. But the global supply chain, the thing that provides all the thousands of critical parts to keep those planes flying safely, is under a kind of strain we've just never seen before. So, to put it simply, the demand for flights is through the roof, but the supply of parts to make it happen is, well, it's at rock bottom.
So, what on earth is going on? How did we get here? Well, this isn't just one thing going wrong. Nope, it's what you'd call a perfect storm. It's three massive global forces all hitting at the exact same time, and it has thrown the entire aviation industry into this crazy scramble for parts.
Okay, let's break this down. Force number one, remember the pandemic? Planes were grounded, so the companies that make the parts, they had to lay off a ton of their workforce just to survive. Then, force number two, at the exact same time, a massive worldwide shortage of basic components hit. We're talking microchips, raw materials, the stuff that goes into everything, from your car to, you guessed it, airplanes. And then, force number three, the comeback. Air travel recovered so fast that airlines just yanked all their stored planes back into service all at once. And that created this just insane spike in demand for maintenance and new parts.
I mean, think about it. Before all this, the industry kind of ran like clockwork. It was predictable. But now, it is a constant daily scramble. The demand for parts is just so far beyond what's actually available, and it's turned a once stable system into a full-blown crisis for pretty much everyone involved.
And this situation has gotten so serious, you guys, that one aircraft manufacturer, ATR, has actually created an official critical parts list. And look, this is not a list of parts that are just running a little late. No way. These are the components that have become incredibly, and in some cases, almost impossibly difficult to get your hands on. We're talking about parts that if you can't get them, you can't fly the plane. Period.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? We see this big, whole airplane, but it's made up of literally thousands and thousands of individual bits and pieces. So, what's actually on this critical list? Well, the answers are pretty eye-opening, and spoiler alert, they affect pretty much every single part of the aircraft.
Okay, let's start with something we all care about, the parts that get you safely on the ground. We are talking about the absolute fundamentals here. Brakes, wheels, even the entire landing gear assembly. All of them are on the critical shortage list. And just to be clear, these aren't optional extras. This is non-negotiable safety equipment.
All right, now let's head into the cockpit. This crisis is hitting what is basically the plane's brain and its central nervous system. You know, the things pilots rely on, like radar transceivers for navigation, DC starter generators for power. But it gets even crazier. Even things like alpha probes, those measure the plane's angle in the air. And the multifunction display units, you know, the actual screens the pilots use to fly the plane, they're all in short supply.
And the problem goes even deeper than that, believe it or not. It's affecting the very systems that make the plane go forward, the engines. The critical list includes propeller hubs, blades, actuators, even the fuel control units that manage the engines. It is a true nose-to-tail shortage.
Honestly, the full list is just staggering. It goes on for pages and pages. We're talking about everything from the air conditioning regulators that keep you comfortable in the cabin to the anti-collision lights that keep the plane visible to other aircraft. When you have dozens of different parts across every single system that are this hard to find, well, routine maintenance just turns into an absolute logistical nightmare.
So, the big question is, with parts this scarce, how in the world do you keep a global fleet of airplanes flying? You can't just sit around and wait for the problem to fix itself, right? Instead, what we're seeing is a global race for a solution.
To tackle this, ATR set up a dedicated operation control center. And you should really think of it like a crisis command center for parts. It's staffed by a team whose only job, 24/7, is to manage this mess. These folks are hunting down parts all over the world, they're coordinating with suppliers, and they're making the really tough calls about who gets the few critical parts they find, which airlines need them the most, right now. And their strategy is pretty impressive. They're attacking this from every angle. First, they've launched task forces to work directly with suppliers, like what do you need to speed up? Second, they're aggressively looking for backup plans, finding alternative parts, different sources. They're also getting super creative with the engineering, trying to find ways to adapt parts or maybe safely extend how long a part can be used. And this is the big one. They're investing now to get better at forecasting, to try and stop this from ever happening again. And you know, some of these solutions are just fascinating. The source material mentions something called FAL robbery. Now, FAL stands for Final Assembly Line. And no, they're not actually stealing anything. What it means is they're literally going to a brand new plane that's still being built, taking a critical part off of it and shipping that part to an airline that has a plane sitting on the ground waiting for it. I mean, that is a drastic measure, and it really shows you how serious this is. On top of that, they're dismantling old, retired aircraft and digging through the secondhand market for anything they can use. So this really intense, all-hands-on-deck response is definitely helping. But the path to a full recovery, it's still pretty fragile. And really, the story of this part shortage isn't just about planes or one company. It's a huge lesson about the interconnected world we all live in. When you boil it all down, the entire crisis comes down to this one fundamental imbalance. On one side, you've got supplier capacity and the availability of components way down here. And on the other side, you've got airline demand way up here. That massive gap, that's the engine driving this whole crisis. And closing it is going to take time, a lot of money, and probably a complete rethinking of how supply chains even work.
So what's the big takeaway here? Ultimately, what's happening with ATR and their aircraft parts is a perfect little snapshot, a microcosm of a much, much bigger issue. It pulls back the curtain on the hidden vulnerabilities in these super efficient global supply chains we rely on for everything. You know, they're built for everything to go perfectly, for stability. But it turns out they can be surprisingly fragile when they get hit with a big, unexpected shock.
And all of this leaves us with a really critical question, doesn't it? I mean, this crisis was kicked off by a pandemic. But the next big shock could be anything, right? Geopolitical conflict, a major climate event, some new technology that changes everything. So the real challenge moving forward isn't just about fixing this one part shortage. It's about figuring out how we build more resilient systems for a future that feels more and more unpredictable every single day.